The weight of empty rooms. Claire Langston always believed that stability was the reward for playing by the rules. But that Thursday morning, with her fingers tightening around the manila envelope handed to her by the new HR manager, she realized rules didn't mean much when the game kept changing. "It's not personal," the manager had said. "It's restructuring." The word bounced around her head like a stray pinball, cold and metallic. Her legs moved automatically toward the exit, her mind numb. Claire walked out of the office, with her dignity intact, but her future unraveling. Chicago's wind bit harder that afternoon, sharp and unkind, like it sensed her unraveling and wanted to finish the job. Her phone buzzed with texts she ignored. Friends checking in, her sister asking about brunch, a reminder for a dental appointment she could no longer afford. At home, the apartment was quiet, sterile even. James wouldn't be home until late. As usual, something about client dinners. She noticed it then, a lipstick smudge on the collar of his white shirt hanging off the chair. Not her shade, not her brand. Her stomach turned, a low sickness spreading like oil in water. But she said nothing when he got home. She didn't have the energy to start a war she couldn't afford to fight. A week later, she found a blonde bobby pin in their shared bathroom. James never bothered hiding anything well. She laid it on the counter and waited. When he saw it, he blinked, hesitated, then shrugged. "Claire, this isn't working," he said. "It hasn't been for a long time." He didn't apologize. He didn't deny. He left that night with a duffel bag and said he'd be staying with a friend. Tasha, she later learned. Younger, prettier, free of years of compromise. The kind of woman who could be adored without expectations. Claire stood in the middle of the living room for a long time, listening to the echo of the door slamming. The refrigerator hummed in the kitchen, a sound she suddenly hated. It was just her and the humming fridge. And silence. That silence was louder than any argument. Time slowed, became syrup, thick and sluggish. Mornings bled into nights. Claire stopped opening the mail. Bills piled like dead leaves around the front door. Her fridge held mustard, expired yogurt, and a single can of sparkling water. The sight of it made her feel like a parody of depression. She scrolled job boards with glassy eyes and applied half-heartedly. Nothing came back. Each rejection email felt like a slap, each silence even worse. When the electricity shut off, she didn't cry. She wrapped herself in a blanket and sat on the floor, letting the cold seep into her bones. Her laptop died with a final flicker. The world went dark, and she welcomed it. That night, she tried writing an email to James. Just a few lines, something raw, honest. But the cursor blinked back at her, accusing, and blank. She erased every word. Then she opened another tab, half considering reaching out to Rachel, an old friend she hadn't seen in months. Again, her fingers hovered over the keyboard and retreated. She couldn't bear to type, "I need help." Not even to someone who once knew her favorite poems by heart. She closed the laptop, held it in her lap like a weight, and wept until morning. One night, she stared into the mirror and didn't recognize herself. Hollow cheeks, unwashed hair, eyes that no longer sparkled. Was this who she had become? Or who she'd always been beneath the noise? Her own reflection stared back, tired and unforgiving. Out of desperation, she wandered into the public library. The heat drew her in, as did the quiet. She picked up a book on a whim, broke but not broken. A line stood out. "When you feel like you've lost everything, start by reclaiming a single hour." The next morning, Claire woke at 7. She showered, dressed in clean clothes, and walked to a cafe with Wi-Fi. She applied to freelance gigs, signed up for a free UX course. She wrote in a cheap notebook, "I still exist." She didn't know if she believed it yet, but she wrote it anyway. It wasn't much, but it was something. And something beat nothing. That single hour became her anchor. The call came just after midnight. "Your mother's been admitted, broken hip. We need family contact." Claire hadn't spoken to her mother in over a year. Their last conversation ended with slammed phones and unspoken truths. But when she saw her in the hospital bed, pale and fragile, something shifted. Memory clawed at her from behind her mother's drawn curtains, a flash of Claire as a child, sitting on the staircase while her mother chain-smoked in the kitchen. After another late-night fight with her father. Her mother had been strong then, sharp-tongued, tired, and ferociously independent. Somewhere along the way, that strength turned brittle. Their love had become transactional, filled with IOUs and unhealed bruises. But there were also other memories, ones that hadn't surfaced in years. Claire remembered the night she came home from school in tears because the kids made fun of her secondhand clothes. Her mother had marched into her room with a pair of scissors and a glittery scarf, transforming the too long dress into something stylish. "Let them laugh when they're behind you," she'd said. Claire wore that dress with pride the next day. Her mother, for all her flaws, had been a kind of warrior. A flawed, complicated warrior who didn't always know how to show love, but had fought for her daughter in small, fierce ways. Claire moved back to the suburbs temporarily to help. She made meals, changed sheets, picked up prescriptions. The quiet routine was grounding, almost monastic. Each task was a small rebellion against the chaos her life had become. They didn't talk much at first, but care softened the edges that time had sharpened. The silences became less accusatory, more companionable. And in her mother's silence, Claire started to see herself. Not the woman who had been broken by James, but the girl who had once fixed broken toys with surgical precision, who had dreamed of architecture and built cities from Lego. The house smelled like lemon, disinfectant, and old memories. Claire kept freelancing in the evenings. She picked up small design jobs for Etsy shops and bloggers. The work gave her structure. It reminded her that she still had value. Her mother, in moments of clarity, began to open up. "I didn't know how to love you without fearing you'd leave me too," she said once, her voice a cracked whisper. Claire didn't reply right away, but she stayed. She began cooking again, listening to music, taking walks. She looked in the mirror and saw color returning to her face. There were still bills, but now there was motion. Her hands stopped shaking. Her voice returned. James emailed, "Hope you're okay. Been thinking about you. We should talk." She stared at it for 5 minutes, then archived it. She boxed up his leftover belongings and mailed them to a P.O. box. No note, no fanfare. That night, she told her mother everything: the betrayal, the debt, the fear. Her mother took her hand and said, "You didn't deserve that, but you survived it." It was the first time Claire believed it might be true. A nonprofit offered her a retainer contract. It wasn't much, but it was steady. Her client list grew. She created a new website, showcasing her work. She updated her portfolio, smiling as she hit publish. She attended a virtual networking event and met Ryan, a soft-spoken developer with kind eyes and a dry wit. They started chatting, then collaborating, then flirting. She was surprised by how easy it felt. Ryan reminded her of her college days, before James, when she used to laugh freely, when she painted her nails bright colors, just because. He sent her a photo of a coffee mug that said, "Still learning," and she laughed for the first time in weeks. He didn't ask about her past, and she didn't volunteer. But he listened. That was enough. One evening on a walk, she found herself telling him about her mother's recovery, about her fears. He didn't offer advice. He just said, "That's a lot. I'm glad you're still standing." Her mother recovered enough to walk with a cane. Claire moved back to the city, into a studio apartment with peeling paint and sunlight through the windows. It was hers. Every scuff on the floor, every creak of the pipes hers. The invite came unexpectedly. A women's empowerment circle looking for guest speakers. Claire hesitated but accepted. She spoke honestly about the layoff, the heartbreak, the breakdown, and the rebuilding. "When you lose everything, you find what you're made of," she told the room. "And I learned I'm made of more than I thought." Applause. Some tears. Afterward, women came up to hug her. One handed her a card. "If you ever want to collaborate." Claire smiled, her throat tight with emotion. She felt seen, validated, alive. Now Claire wakes early. She drinks coffee by the window. She answers emails with confidence. Her new apartment smells like lavender and ambition. There are still struggles, but she faces them. She frames one of her designs and hangs it on the wall. Not for sale. Not for anyone else. Just hers. She is no longer the woman crying in the dark, afraid of her own shadow. She is her own beginning. And she finally, truly, belongs to herself.